Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Project Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack, and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity. We're based here in Leeds, England, and we help people who are facing the end of their lives or dealing with a bereavement to write and record an original song. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories, and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, you can visit our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. The podcast features songwriters. Each episode I have a different songwriter on. I ask them to share with us one of their songs, talk about how they wrote it. I ask them to share a songwriting tip, and I also ask them for a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. This episode features Amelia Coburn, and it's a really fun and interesting conversation with lots of great insights into Amelia's work. I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you do, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We're really trying to grow it this year. We've got lots more great guests coming up that you're not going to want to miss. But without further ado, here is Amelia Coburn on the Swan Song Project Podcast. Enjoy. Okay, today I'm here with Amelia Coburn. Thanks for joining me, Amelia.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to talking to you. This is the Swan Song Project Podcast. For anyone new to the show, I have a different songwriter on every episode. First, we're going to have one of Amelia's songs, and we'll talk a bit about how she wrote that. Then section 2, I'll ask Amelia for a song I won't. I'll ask Amelia for a songwriting tip. Then in section 3, I'll ask Amelia for a song that's meaningful to her in some way relating to bereavement. So over to you, Amelia. Which song of yours have you chosen to talk to us about today?
It's a song called Seesaw, and it's off my latest album, but my first debut album that was released last month.
First and latest album.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So this is Seesaw by Amelia Coburn.
Seesaw, open the door, lift up the latch, enter my mind. Inside you'll find patchworks of passageways, tales twined into a fray, seamless twisted ballet spinning inside of my head. Magpie, mischievous sigh, witnessing crows and their murder, such sweet sorrow, fever and jealousy, witchcraft and heresy, mourning your majesty. How does your wife feel today? Does she sing herself to sleep? Does she look before the leap? Is she waiting for your secret or your sign? Sing, oh muse of the sunflower child, moths fly to the flame like she leads towards the light. Sing, oh muse of the fairy tale bride, to see the dawn rise, she must waltz with the night. Creatures lurk in the hours between the moon and the milkman. Black cats sit tight, eyes on the creamery, feign immortality, till curiosity swings down and nips at your tail. When your memories wax and wane, and your time is tied by chains, she'll be waiting for your secret or your sign. Sing, oh muse
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, that was Seesaw. It's a great song, Amelia. I love it. I was thinking about it silly. It's got like, I feel like it's quite creepy, but it's also
Yeah.
really fun. It feels like a
That
real
was
kind
the
of,
vibe I was going for.
that's
Yeah.
what you're aiming for, yeah. So yeah, what can you tell us about writing it?
So Seesaw had its origins. A lot of the time when I'm writing, I'll be just messing around with my ukulele, which is my main instrument, and finding nice chords. For me, melody reigns supreme when I'm writing. Lyrics come secondary to that. Um, Even though lyrics to me are still important, I'd rather have a really nice melody or chords that fit round it really nicely, and try and get a few unusual chords in there too. Not really on purpose as such, but all the songs I love have like slightly dissonant chords or jazz chords and that sort of thing. So I always like have my voice notes on my phone when I'm playing around with the uke, and I remember the chords for Seesaw started in like 2019 when I was at uni, and I'd sometimes when I've got a bit of writer's block, I'll tune my ukulele, but not even to like a standard different tuning, just like the weirdest. It doesn't make it's like a really horrible sound when you pluck it as one, but then when I do like kind of shapes on the ukulele, it would come out with some really interesting sounds. Because as well, I don't read music, so even when I'm playing it in the correct tuning, GCEA, I think I can't remember. Like I don't really play it as chords. I just do it as how things sound, and I just make shapes and hope for the best. So when I did Seesaw, yeah, I detuned the ukulele years ago, wrote this like kind of chord pattern and a really nice melody over the top. And at the time, I just couldn't really think of what to do with it. But it always stuck with me. I think that's always a sign to finish a song when that melody or chord structure sticks. And I always went back to it. So I think it was when I was writing for the album, although most of the songs on the album have been written over the last 8 years. Seesaw was the one that was most like the newest song. I finished it on the way down to the studio, and I was going through my old stuff, and I thought that chord structure, I need to do something with that. So I found out what the chords actually were in standard tuning. I think it was like D minor and like a diminished chord and stuff. Because obviously I was playing in a really weird tuning, and when I play live, I keep it in the correct tuning. Anyway, I found that, and then I finally started writing lyrics to it and making a full song. And that is, I've spoken for ages there, but yeah, that's the kind of origins of the song.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's interesting with like one of the things I think people like often criticize about ukuleles is that a lot of time is kind of like people use the simple chords, don't they? And it is really nice to hear a ukulele that's playing more unusual chords.
It's a really versatile instrument as well, because
Yeah.
I think because the ukulele had its resurgence in the sort of 2000s, 2010s, and it was, often twee, young, like I was gonna say young women, but also men, like playing like you say, C, A minor, G, like those sorts of pop songs, which is fine. Like it was great that people could pick up the instrument and do that, but I also didn't want to be like just put in that category, and I wanted to, for me, like ukulele goes back to all the old jazz standards. A lot of the songs were written with ukuleles, and I know George Harrison in the 60s was a massive fan of the uke, as was Jeff Lynne from Yellow. So I wanted to keep that sort of, like, it doesn't have to sound a certain way, the ukulele. It can be like a guitar or a piano or a harp. It has so many different it's a very diverse instrument.
Yeah, it is good. One of my friends, Rob Crisp, who actually was on the first episode of the Swan Song Podcast, he did an album one time called Sad Songs for Ukulele, because for a similar thing where it was like, oh, ukulele is always kind of seen as like just jolly kind of strummy, so he wanted to do something a bit different with it. Yeah, it is a good underappreciated instrument, I think, the ukulele.
It is, yeah. People are really quick to judge it because they've got like an assumption that I'm going to play when I'm cleaning windows, and they hear me and they're like, oh.
Do you get requested that at every gig?
Oh, it's annoying, yeah.
Yeah.
George Hornby, shut up. Is that a little violin?
Yeah. What can you tell me about starting on the lyrics then? So and I can see how it's like it is a great melody, and I can see how it's very would stick with you. But yeah, I kind of, I don't know, I thought you might have started with the lyrics on this one because the lyrics are so good as well and so interesting. I thought it might have been that you'd had that kind of starting point.
When it comes to lyrics, some of the lyrics from my original ramblings often stay at the end. as you know, a lot of writers will do, I'm sure you know, like you'll have, like Paul McCartney had scrambled eggs for yesterday. I'll have like filler lines while I'm playing a melody, and I think I was thinking a lot about the nursery rhyme, seesaw, Marjorie Daw, da 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 da. Well, I don't think it's in minor key, but anyway, I had that little nursery rhyme that was like filling in the melody at the time, and that just stuck with me. Every time I played that and tried to write with it, I was going seesaw, da 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 da, all the different variations of that. So the seesaw aspect actually stuck, and that's what gave me the inspiration and the spark of thinking, I've got why is this nursery rhyme theme going through it? And I grew up with nursery rhymes. It's like, oh, is my Wi-Fi okay?
Yeah, still got
A bit there. I grew up with nursery rhymes. There's videos of me when I'm about 3, before I could even read, like with this nursery rhyme book, singing all the songs, because I had CD playing, so I was like sort of flicking through them and singing like Old King Cole and Humpty Dumpty. But I also quite like the sort of more like macabre, is that a word? Like darker side of those childhood nursery rhymes. Obviously they've got some strange historical origins, and same with fairy tales. I read loads of Brothers Grimm, like the kind of child-friendly versions, and Aesop's fables, and these sorts of childhood stories that actually have a lot of murkier and like dark undertones. So Seesaw was inspired by that. And then a lot of my songs tell stories, and Seesaw didn't necessarily tell a story, because I think I was getting in a bit of writer's block thinking I have to tell a story here, and actually people can take their own story from it. And I was researching a bit about, well, I think something came up on my Facebook, you know, you get influence from everywhere, but something came up, like, I don't even know if it was real, but it was reasons people got were sent to jail or arrested in Victorian Britain, and one of them was witchcraft and heresy. So I thought, I'm taking that. I really like that. So Seesaw, yeah, lyrically is the sort of darker side to things that look quite nice on the outside, maybe like myself. People see me and think, oh, happy ukulele, and actually that's the surface.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, there's some great lines, and one thing that I'm always a big fan of, like unusual rhyme. So, you know, the words that you don't always hear in lyrics, and the second verse, or the verse after the first chorus anyway, which has the title of the album in it. But the lines, black cats sit tight, eyes on the creamery, feign immortality till curiosity swings down and nips at your tail.
Yeah, actually, that one particular line, I wish I could take full credit for, but actually my manager, Andy, he's always like, I need to get songwriting credits on this. He helped me out with that one, because I'd finished the song except for that little verse. And I think he was one who's, because I was like, I've put fear in immortality, and I was like, oh, immortality. And he was like, what, creamery? I was like, that's brilliant, because like you don't hear that word in many songs. Like that's a good one to get in, and it didn't have to be like a specific rhyme, like you say, because I think you can often get stuck in a rut and be like, has to rhyme, and actually it sounds a bit better when it's a near rhyme. But yeah, and that kind of, as well as the fairy tales and stuff, there was a lot of the superstition in there, because I'm not superstitious as such, but I always say to people, my life is ruled by magpies. Like if I see 2 magpies out my window right now, that means I'm having a good day. If I see one for sorrow, like the day's ruined, which is stupid, I know. When I had my driving test a few months ago, I saw one, I was like, oh no. And then another one flew by, and I thought, it's fine, I'm going to be out, and I passed. And I think it's because of the magpie. So I actually managed to get like the morning, Your Majesty, how does your wife feel today? And the black cats and all those things that sort of ruled my life at some point.
What's the morning, Your Majesty one?
So when you see a magpie, you're meant to say, good morning, Your Majesty, how's your wife today? I think it stems back to because magpies maybe mate for life. So if you see one on their own, they're meant to be unlucky or bring bad fortune. Although I remember I read a lot about magpies. I quite like folklore mythology, and I think in some cultures they're seen as lucky. But yeah, if you see one on their own, it's unlucky. But if you say, good morning, Your Majesty, how's your wife today? It's meant to kind of get rid of the bad luck, and that's the whole 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a girl. I don't know why there's so much superstition surrounding it, but yeah.
I didn't know that, and that was another one of the lines that when I heard it, I was like, oh, I wonder what's that. And again, I'm quite glad that you said that there's not a linear story, because I was listening to it and I was like, have I missed something here?
We've gone from like seesaw to magpies to cats. Yeah, it's meant to more evoke a feeling rather than a specific and same with the music video that goes with it. Like it didn't have a narrative or anything linear going through. It was just like it's creepy and disturbing.
Yeah, it definitely does that, and that's kind of a good thing, I guess, with that feeling. The the lack of like resolution and like, oh, that's the end of the story, that's the moral there. Makes you stick with that a bit more. You said that you write a lot of stories in your other songs. Was this one particularly difficult not doing it as a story? Was there anything particularly that you found different from writing, like where you've got a set story that you're going to tell?
I think when there's a set story, it's easier in a way because you've got those constraints of like, okay, I'm telling this, I've got to kind of get a scene across with the character or whatever I'm talking about. So my song Dublin Serenade tells of my 24-hour escapades in Dublin, and when I got there at 5 a.m. and didn't get a hotel for the night, and I left at 5 a.m. the next day, and I walked the streets of Dublin all night, and the song tells of the people I met and the things that happened during that time. Whereas with Seesaw, because there was it was quite freeing in a way because I could just literally write about whatever I wanted. It could be that more stream of consciousness style, and it wouldn't matter. Like, they don't always have to make sense because, like we said, people make sense of it themselves and they put their own spin on things and meaning. But yeah, it was also like, oh, I can write about anything. What do I write? I think sometimes it's good to give yourself rules if you're struggling to write. Like either get the word creamery in there, or like have a line that only has 2 words in, or something, a color in each verse, just something that gives you a bit of structure, because it can be quite hard when you've just got a whole song to write and you don't know where to start. It's nice having some give yourself some rules. And
particularly if it's something different than what you used to, like it's because it's just whatever it is, whether it's good or bad it produces, it's going to be something that you've not done before. I always like these, think of them as like arbitrary rules of like, write a song where you're going to use this rhyme scheme or whatever, but then if you break it when you've started, it doesn't matter because you've started, haven't you? That's
you've got the song thing.
then. So this has got the title of this from your new album, Between the Moon and the Milkman, which is also a lyric in this song. Where did that line come from?
So the album came from the song, and the line Between the Moon and the Milkman. I really wish I could say I made it up, but I didn't. I'm a big fan of like dictionaries and thesauruses and all of that. Whenever I'm reading a book on my Kindle, I'll always save a nice phrase. And I was trying to find like a really evocative and poetic way of saying nighttime or anything to do with like the moon, because a lot of the songs are written at night or about night, and I wanted that feeling to be like the album image is me with a black background. I just thought it would fit really nicely with the whole image of it. And I googled, I think, like phrases to do with the moon, and I found that one after loads of searching because I didn't want like once in a blue moon or anything that was obvious. And I found that, and I thought, I've never heard of that, and I think it was quite a good find because I don't know if someone made it up or if it is. Apparently, it's quite common in Australia, but then I asked my Australian friends, and they said we don't say that. So luckily, I just found this phrase online, and you kind of say to go between the moon and the milkman means like you've gone overnight, you've gone in a flash, but I just more use that phrase as a symbolism of the things that you discover or that are lurking between those midnight hours.
Yeah, I really like it. It's a really cool phrase. It reminds me of I can't remember, again, I did a similar thing where like I must have read it in a book somewhere and wrote it down, and I always wanted to write something around it but never did. The phrase between a hiccup and a heart attack.
Love that.
Again, I can't remember where, but that's one of those phrases. I've definitely found it somewhere and thought, I love that. I never actually used it, but always sticks with me, and then that's what that reminded me of.
That'll be my next album title.
Yes. That can be all your albums have to be in between the something and the something. See if I can get with that. So you said this was the last track that you finished for the album.
Yeah, so I'm quite a perfectionist, and like it takes me ages to finish a song, but I had about 9 tracks, and I thought it's probably I just need one more thing, and I wanted like another almost like more a spookier song, because that the later songs like Nodding Dog and Seesaw feel like my most true musical self, because it is a debut that I've been writing since I was like 19. Some of the songs I wrote at the time probably don't fit in I'm still finding my musical identity, so I was trying to find things that a bit more like 25-year-old me rather than 19-year-old me. So yeah, the whole album is like a growth of my songwriting. But yeah, Seesaw really, because it was half finished before I recorded it, I was like, if I can get this finished, I really want it on the album. So it was just on the way over there, I had that last verse at the end where Andy, my manager, was like, eyes on the creamery. And I think it was done at that point, but it still felt really weird to record because it was so fresh all the other songs had been performed in front of audiences countless times.
Yeah.
That was like no one had heard it, not even myself really. Like when I was playing it, I was still getting things wrong because it felt so raw, but I'm really glad it was on the album, and the way it was produced, I had no expectations because I'd just finished it, so it was perfect the way it all turned out.
Yeah. That's interesting. And then, 'cause obviously, then it was the first single as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, again, like I don't know what would have been the first single if it wasn't for that, but I
Yeah.
thought that was a really nice way to set the mood. You know, it's not, I knew it was going to be a hit. It wasn't going to be on radio too, but I thought the people who like that are going to like my album. If they get it, they'll get everything I do. It sort of sums me up. So, yeah, like I say, slightly disturbing, but the ukulele you can really hear through it. Of course, there's production on top of that, which I really love as well. Nat and Bill Ryder Jones, who produced it, they had the idea of sort of that organ over the
Mm.
top, slightly reminiscent of Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite by the Beatles, bringing that circus sound into it, and there's also the sort of electric guitar over the top, which made me think of like Portishead and more like not trip hop, but like that 90s like Goldfrapp and like that kind of cinematic James Bond, I suppose, theme like guitar, which I really liked. And I wanted it to feel really cinematic is probably the word, yeah.
And so then when you released it, that was the first time other people were really hearing it when the single came out. So you hadn't
Yeah, I might
played
have
it
played
live
it
much in.
once or twice, but actually, yeah, I don't think I'd played it anywhere, that song. So it was only once it was released that people heard it live. So yeah, that was the first taste of the album, and no one had heard of it. So that was great.
Wow. Yeah. Because it's a funny thing, isn't it? Where like, and you hear a lot with bands with first albums where like, the songs are songs they've been playing live for a long time, so they've had a lot of feedback on it. And then I guess particularly when bands are bigger and they might not share, new stuff as until it's on an album. But it must feel like a daunting thing of sharing it for the first time where it's like, here's the finished product. You've not been able to test it out in front of a crowd and get a live
It
bit of
was a
feedback.
bit, but also I was more nervous probably about the ones that people knew, because a lot of
Okay.
people, like for example, when the tide rolls in, that is a really acoustic song that a lot of people love. It's just me and my uke when I do it live, but the recording, I mean, it's still fairly acoustic, but there was a bit more overlaid with drums and like a sort of, I can't even, like a cello almost sound. And I think a few people were like, oh, weren't expecting that fuller sound. They really liked just me and my uke. So, and there was a few songs as well that I re-recorded for the album that I'd released about 5 years ago. I recorded them from home, and again, that was great for the time, but for the album, I wanted a fresh slate, and I wanted to re-record everything and with the voice I have now and the style I have now. But some people are like, oh, where's the old version gone off Spotify? Or can we hear the old one? And there's always going to be people who prefer those versions. So
Yeah.
most people don't. Most people love the album as a whole and love the newer style. You can't compare like Dublin Serenade I recorded in 2020. That's a lot jazzier. The Dublin Serenade on the album is more Brian Wilson. The carpet is inspired with the harmonies and the instrumentation. I think there's like flutes on there. So yeah, it was nice having something completely fresh because no one had any like prejudgments on it. Whereas the older stuff that people loved, I thought, oh, it could be like when
Yeah.
Dylan elected here, they might hate this.
Yeah. With the older songs, is that them being different just in terms of like the way the recording and the production and arrangement, or have the songs the songs evolve like in their core structure over time with you, or once you've written it, is it kind of set?
Pretty much the set, like the things that changed were production wise. It was a lot fuller with like a band backing me. But lyrics don't usually change. Although when there's like a song, just say Seesaw or like one of the newer ones, if I'm testing it out live, that's why I quite like having a song played live before I take it into the studio, because that does evolve. Like the lyrics will change. The tune, like Nodding Dog, when I first started playing that, was very I guess just very sung straight through, whereas now I add the ooh, even after I've recorded it, I've changed it, I've added a bit more like embellishments with my voice. And same with Oh Captain Guide Me Home. The first time I played that to a live audience a few years ago, it was really slow. And my manager Andy, who's a kind of like a creative like partner almost, we like write together and he gives me like feedback. I don't always take it, but like with that he said, oh, it sounded a bit slow. Like, do you want to try one time having it a bit faster? And I did it, and I said, you're completely right. It was too slow when I did it the first time, and then when I recorded it, it was fast. It's still not a fast song, but yeah, the first time I ever played that to an audience, it was like unbearably slow. It's quite nice having those live performances to test the waters with these songs.
Yeah. And you say you had alternate lyrics sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes like not alternate, but I'll change if a song's still in its development stage. I'll often change things, and I think Sleepy Town, there was a few different changes with that from the original that I sang like before it was recorded. Yeah.
Would that often be based around like the way it is to sing or the meaning of the words? Like with your, does that make sense?
Yeah, probably the way it is to sing. Sometimes if it's like an
Yeah.
easy thing to, I'm trying to think, and sometimes I forget what my own lyrics are. So Sleepy Town at the end it goes, goodbye my sleepy, farewell my weeping. But I can't actually remember what the original lyrics were when I was in the studio. I changed it every time. So whatever the final take was, that ended up being the song. Same with Nodding Dog. I think Nodding Dog, the bridge goes something like pleading down on my knees, or got me pleading down on my knees. But then originally it was and I'm pleading down on my knees, or vice versa. So that changes every time I sing it, depending on my mood.
Yeah.
It's nice to change things up. I think, like, was it Alex Turner with Arctic Monkeys? People were complaining that he was singing like off the beat and stuff. But I said, well, I would do that. If I've been singing a song for 10 years, I'd change it around and have it like how I want to sing it.
Yeah, and like Dylan apparently just like rewrites complete whole songs, doesn't he? When he plays live, he'll just do Mr. Tambourine Man, but it's like completely different song.
Yeah.
Which I really love. I kind of really respect, but I also, like, if I went to see Dylan, I'd be a bit like, oh, I'd really like to hear the version that I know.
Yeah, I love it when an artist has like a specific song maybe about a place, and then when they're in a new place, they can change it to fit that like gig or something, you know, or if something's topical, they can change the song slightly. I've never done that, but I quite admire when an artist suddenly changes a song halfway through.
Yeah, that is cool, isn't it? Yeah, something that I like. I've always been like a very wordy guy. I always feel like lyrics are always really important to me, and that idea of like how it feels to sing was something that took me a long time to kind of think about, because I was always like so much about this is what the words, you know, these words are really like important to me the way they are. And then but then I would find the same thing sometimes when you sing it, especially if you're doing it, you know, night after night, you're like, actually, it feels weird singing like that. It would sound better this way, even if like, you know, intellectually, like, but it should be read that way.
Yeah.
Artistically, it might sound better to sing it this other way, which, yeah, it's an interesting element, which it took me quite a long time to realize.
Recording is such a different process to singing live, isn't it? Because when you record and you can be like, oh, I'll do that bit again. Like I didn't get my breath right. Let me do that. But then when you're playing it live and you realize, oh, this is way too hard. Like Seesaw, the intro to that, I've never played live before, and I can play it live, but when I'm in the studio and I want to keep to a time so the other instrument players can keep with me, I found it really hard to do over and over again, and so we had to like just loop it, because I was like, I can't do that. I've just realized I've written this song, but it's impossible for me to record. And yeah, so that was quite a learning curve.
Yeah, the magic of recording.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So let's move into section 2 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests for a songwriting tip. So what would your tip be for us today, Amelia?
Oh, I wish I'm terrible giving tips, because people need to give me tips. I'm not a prolific songwriter at all. I think what's working for me at the moment is just making yourself sit down and write, because even if you don't get anything that's worthy of a song, you just don't know. Like the same with Seesaw. Back in 2019, I wrote that melody and chord pattern, and didn't think anything of it really. I just thought, oh, it's quite nice. And then lo and behold, 5 years later, it's a single, it's on Radio 6 and all of this. And I think just have like half an hour a day, whether that be on your lunch break or on a night time to relax, to try and sit and write something, or like just give it like some creative space. So even if you're not going, I'm going to write a song, just go for a walk and listen to demos, or read a book that's inspiring you and write down some nice words. One time when I was struggling to write, we got a book, I think it was like a Nico's biography or something, and I like found a random page, and well, I would flick through it, and every time I saw like a cool word or phrase, I'd write it down, and I wrote a whole song from doing that. And you can't tell it's from the book, and I haven't actually released that. That's like a fairly new one I'm working on. But yeah, like I think just give yourself that creative time and space, and try weird ideas like that, and it often it'll work. That's like
Yeah.
probably got 5 tips in one there, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I think the dedicated times is a really good thing. But I really like the having different ways of using that time that you said there, of like, like going for a walk and listening to something or reading something different. And there's a Neil Gaiman quote that I really like where he said about like say I'm going to go sit at my desk and I can either do nothing or I can write. I'd
Yeah.
often choose to write, but I think that's really good, and like giving yourself that space. But sometimes just making yourself do that, if you know you're just going to be looking at a blank page, can be really hard. But if you have options of like, oh, maybe I'll go and do this, but they're all based around getting the creative stuff going, is
Because like you say, once you
really
sat
good.
down, like most likely you will start working. It's like going to the gym. Like the idea of going to the gym, I haven't been in weeks because I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered. And I went today to do a class, and I was like, I'm so like the hardest part was walking out the door because after
Yeah,
that I enjoyed it. It was just, it's like the same with writing. I'll be sat watching telly, being like, oh, I should write. I can't be bothered, or I'm not feeling inspired. But you're never going to feel inspired if you don't sit down and try. Like you're never going to write if you're not going to even start to do it.
yeah,
But it can be hard. Like I know myself, if you're juggling jobs or you've got other commitments, like find that time to be creative is difficult. It's just so you've got to try and carve it out if you can. Even 5 minutes a day, doesn't have to be half an hour, like 5 minutes in the morning is your little personal time to just think and have a little creative time.
yeah, definitely. It came up on a podcast, a fairly recent episode, where we said with creative stuff, how it's not always more work or harder work equals better product. Sometimes it is just like you might have 5 minutes and have a great time for 5 minutes, and then you come out with a song which becomes your biggest hit.
That's
It's
the
not
annoying
like,
thing. You can
yeah,
work for hours on something and get nothing, and then all of a sudden one day you'll just write a song within 5 minutes, and you just never know when that creative spark's going to happen. So you have to just keep chipping away. And I think
yeah,
it is a muscle that gets better as you practice and use it. I think as I've got older and more mature with my writing, not that it gets easier, but I think my songs, I've got more experience of how to write and what works for me. So it is just practicing and keeping at it.
yeah, definitely. That's really good advice. Do you have a set routine with yourself at the moment, or?
Not at the moment. I'm sort of starting it. Like I've got this little, I say study. It's like a got the like dirty laundry in it and stuff. But I'm trying to like get myself in here every day. And even if I'm just like playing the ukulele and practicing songs that I like and covers, I think all of it does feed into it. I think when I wrote my debut, a lot of like we're talking about storytelling. I was living abroad because I studied languages at university. And I felt really inspired because I was living in Paris and Mexico and Russia and I had all these new experiences. But then when I came back home to Middlesbrough and my life was pretty mundane, people think as a musician you've got an exciting life, and I really don't. Like all I do is clean and eat and go on my laptop and do work. So I was trying like it's that finding inspiration in ways that you're not used to, and like that's why I think with Seesaw it was more about like fairy tales and nursery rhyme and superstition because nothing in my life was interesting enough, and I was trying to find like inspiration through the books I read. Like I was reading a lot of Daphne du Maurier and Edgar Allan Poe at the time. So I think that's what I'm trying to do now is sit down and find a routine, but also it sounds like I'm just giving an excuse, but I do need time to read and watch films and listen to podcasts and all of that because that is part of your creativity. But to answer the question, no, I don't have that yet, but I'm trying.
Yeah. And I guess that because you're in the spot where you've just released something, so I always saw it's being cyclical like that. If you have that kind of phase where it's like the input phase, I would think of it of like you're kind of reading a lot and you're like experiencing stuff, and then have a creative phase where it's like processing all that back into something. Then there's like the creation phase and the release phase. So
Yeah.
it feels like you're kind of in the
Listen.
release phase, aren't you? Where because you're kind of promoting that, and you've got a talk coming up and stuff, haven't you? I always find it hard to be like thinking about the next thing and creating when you've got all this new stuff that's
Yeah, you're
that
so
you're talking
busy
about.
and people are saying what you're doing now and I'm like, well, I'm kind of writing. Like I'm trying to write for the second album or at least a few singles because it'll come around quick and I don't want to have
Mm.
nothing to release. But like you say, you're so like overwhelmed and inundated with what they're releasing at the time. You can't really enjoy the release because you're like, okay, what's next? But
Yeah,
like it's that rather than writing time, it's the like absorbing time.
yeah. Do you have any potential things in mind or things that you like taking in at the moment that you think might be a theme or something you'd like to explore in your next batch of
Yeah, I
songs?
think that again with songwriting themes can often help. Like even if you don't, like you say, you don't stick to it. Like with Between the Moon and the Milkman, the themes that I had going in my head were like nighttime and travel. And then with the next stuff, I'm thinking a lot about sort of, again, it's not nice themes, but like alienation and isolation and like more personal themes. But I've been reading a lot of I read The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka the other day for the first time. Like, I'm trying to get through my classics. And like that sort of, in one of my favorite films is Kes. And like, you know, about the boy who is kind of like ostracized but finds hope in his kestrel, and loads of themes like that. I'm thinking, oh, I've got a song that's inspired by that and a song that's inspired by that. Maybe these collections of songs could be an EP or an album. And again, they don't all have to be about that, but if they have a thread running through, that would definitely help me with more ideas. And dreams, actually, at the moment, some people don't dream or don't remember them. My dreams are wild. Like, honestly, I write them down because they are full on like epic sagas. And I know it's one of those things where you tell someone you dream and they're like, that's really boring. But I feel like if I wrote it into a song, it might make them more interesting for people. So that's inspired at the moment too, is my dreams.
Nice. Do you write dreams down in the morning then?
I've got not every morning, because sometimes if your alarm goes off, you've got to get to work or something. But I've got a dream diary, and they're really funny to read back, actually, because you wake up and you're like, huh, and you write all this nonsense down. I read back and I think, what? I don't even remember it myself, but my dreams are so vivid that sometimes, like when I'm in bed at night going to sleep, I remember dreams from years ago, like that pop up in my head again, that are still there, that I never wrote down when I was like 12. And I'm like, oh, that's a place I dreamt about when I was 13. It's wild, like. So I'm thinking there's got to be some creative inspiration there somewhere.
Yeah. There's been lots of stuff to go at. You ever messed around with lucid dreaming?
When I was about 15, I had an obsession that I was gonna lucid dream, and I stayed awake till 4, and I was like, okay, lucid dream. I never had it. Have you?
No, again, I had a similar thing where, like, when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get into this, and like. And that'll be something. And my main thing was for songwriting. I thought, oh, if I could lucid dream, I could have all kinds of crazy dream experiences that would then inform my songs. Never got anywhere with it.
And it feels like it almost spoils the point of dreaming, because at least with dreaming you can just completely let go and your mind thing. Whereas if I had to concentrate in daytime and at nighttime, that's too much pressure. Like, no, I need to just switch off at night.
Yeah, too much concentrating in the daytime already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good. That sounds like you've got a lot of interesting things going with stuff. So I guess with the first album, you say that songs have been written together over quite a long period of time. So was there something that pulled them together besides making an album? But was there something that pulled that collection of songs together to be the album?
It was just because it was my debut and I'd written these songs. The first song I wrote, Song of the Sea Rover, isn't on the album. There's a few early songs when I was about 19 that didn't make it. The older song of the album is Dublin Serenade. That was written in 2017. But yeah, the main thing that ties them as one piece is because it's a debut, and it's just like songs I've been writing and recording and performing for the last few years. But like I said, luckily, because of the travel theme, a lot of them, and I was writing about people and places that I'd seen growing up. I say growing up, but from like the age of 19 almost into adulthood. That sort of solidified them as a whole. So when I was choosing tracks for the album, it was just a matter of which ones are my favourites or which ones are the best. And I wanted it, when I was thinking about my debut album, I wanted it to be like the folk version of Revolver by the Beatles. So like it had like the kind of twee stuff on there, like the Pop McCartney-esque. You've got Perfect Storm, which is a bit more Lennon lyrics, and I quite like the psychedelic elements of all that. So not that I'm comparing myself to the Beatles, but Revolver as an album is like so varied, and it all belongs in the same world. And I wanted to be able to replicate that in terms of my songs don't sound like each other, they don't sound the same, but they can still belong on one album.
Hi, I am Jill Hurst, and as a family we have worked with the Swan Song Project to write a song about my husband Paul, who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 3 years ago at the age of 59. As music has always been a love of Paul's, and each day continues to bring him joy, writing a song seemed a great way to celebrate what he means to us. We wanted to get over the beautiful, kind man he is and our memories of our happy times together. This song is perfect, a powerful, poignant and upbeat tribute. Writing our song has been a fascinating and fun experience we will never forget, bringing us closer together as a family and giving us the opportunity to share our happy and sad emotions of this difficult journey. Please donate to the Swan Song Project to help more people write a swan song.
Great stuff. Let's move to section 3 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guest for a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. So which song have you chosen for us today, Amelia?
Please Go Gently, which is again off my album.
Brilliant. So we'll listen to that now.
By the time you're reading this, I hope you feel no pain. Relief is found in silver-lined clouds to wash over you like rain. Go to sleep, count the stars, cradled in my arms. But by the time you're reading this, you're probably far from home. You killed 2 birds and fought their flight with nothing but a stone. I'll carry the reminder and I'll carry you home if you let go all the burdens you have ever known. They've found peace now, as have you. Please go gently into that night. At the time of writing this, you've fallen at your feet. But in our pride, this lion's heart shall not admit defeat. At first blush of March's moon, spring was in your step. But at the time of writing this, Father Time has failed you. Though fire burns on, we all know glowing embers die and fade too. There are too many words wrapped round my tongue, but you hear the music to your ears. My heart has sung all for you, my love. Now it's goodbye. Please go gently into that night. Please go gently into that night.
Okay, that was Please Go Gently. Yeah, it's a beautiful song, Amelia. What can you tell us about writing this one? Why
I
you
wrote
chose this?
this in 2021, and I was really close to my granddad growing up. Like, he practically raised me. No disrespect to my parents, but like, they were at work. I'd go around to my nana and granddad's. Well, I say Grandy's house around the corner. And like, they were just great. They were like, yeah, the free childminders for my mum. And so in 2021, he was about 93 at 94, I can't remember, but he was in his 90s. And we sort of knew he wasn't going to be with us much longer. And it was really lucky, to be honest, because he was really lucid right until the end. You know, he didn't have any moment where he like forgot who he was or who we were. He was making jokes and stuff, so we were lucky in that sense. It was still a really hard time though, because he was like the pillar of our family. And I was thinking a lot about as he was kind of getting ill, the Dylan Thomas poem "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night," where he tells his dad to fight fiercely against the end. And I was thinking about it, like I kind of got what the sentiment of it, but at the same time I wanted to write a song where it said, like, I want, if you have to go, I want you that to be a gentle journey and a peaceful end. I don't want you to fight, I want you to go peacefully. So that's how I wrote Please Go Gently. Was, I think I finished it after my granddad passed away, but yeah, I wrote that for him, really, like as in tribute and a way of, yeah, commemorating him. Is that the word?
Yeah, it's really lovely. Really nice song. And yeah, it's interesting, that sentiment, isn't it? I was thinking the same when I'm not familiar with the poem really, but like I heard, I knew of that phrase, the "Please Don't Go Gently" one, and then I thought the same of. I think when I was listening to your song, I was like, oh, I know that phrase from somewhere. And it wasn't until I looked it up, I was like, oh, the Dylan Thomas ones don't go gently. But I was on the same page as you, and I thought similarly, I'd want somebody to go gently rather than.
Yeah. Like, I get that, you want someone to not go, but if they have to, everyone has to go in the end, and like,
Yeah,
want that journey to heaven to be like a nice, gentle one. So that's where the inspiration came from, and the song is just talking about him. Like, it kind of, actually, as well, it was at the same time my childhood pet Muffin died. He was a cat who was 21, who I'd had since I was 2. So like, I was like, I think it was, Dad made a joke, like, not, he was like, who's gonna live longer, your granddad or Muffin? Because honestly, Muffin was like hanging on. I don't know how she lived so long, but it was just like a really weird time of grief for me, and I hadn't really had any bereavement like that since I was younger. So as an adult, it was a strange feeling of like coping with that. And songwriting, I suppose, is the way for me to get through that. But yeah, the song, people think about my granddad, and it is like this kind of, in our pride, this lion's heart will not admit defeat. But I think there's a bit about you killed 2 birds and fought their flight with nothing but a stone. That was actually a reference to my cat, not my granddad. Yeah, so I've never actually, like, people probably don't even realize that, because it's just one of those things you put in a song when it's in its working stages, and it just stayed.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice that you get the tie into both of them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the line in it, the relief is found in silver-lined clouds.
Yeah, thank you.
That was really good.
Proud of that. I like to get like metaphors and phrases in there, but I didn't want I always try and avoid cliches where I can. I didn't want it to be like, there's, every cloud has a silver lining. I was like, how can I get that? And I thought, yeah, I wanted it to be another way of thinking of that phrase, because I think of how there is silver linings. It's not all death is horrible, but you can learn a lot from it, and you can grow from it, and I wanted to take that from the experience.
Yeah, I think you're right, because sometimes like a cliche, it's just like, it's a cliche for a reason, because it's a really good phrase, or it really makes sense, but then you don't want to just put that in. So yeah, really nice when you can rewrite it in some way.
Yeah.
What was it like emotionally writing it? So did you start it when he was still alive, or?
Yeah, I did actually. I had the chord. I mean, again, it was one of those ones where I'd had the chords for ages, and the chords were going to go on a different song. And then when I was thinking about writing this song with the kind of "Please Go Gently" idea, I thought those chords would work really nicely. And I've got loads of versions of it on my phone from the time, like spanning months, really.
Wow.
And so it evolved from those chords to the lyrics, then changing the chords around. But yeah, I think the writing of it wasn't emotional, really, because like you say, he was still alive during a lot of the writing process. But I remember the first time I performed it live, and my mum, it was her dad, she was in the audience, and that was really emotional because I didn't cry, I don't think. I had to kind of swallow like the kind of you know, you can feel like a lump in your throat. I was like, okay, I don't like. I was trying to let my tears well up too much because I try and stay not even professional is the word because you can be professional and cry, but I thought if I start crying, I won't stop, and I've still got a gig to do. But I can think she was emotional, and that was pretty like, yeah, that was an emotional time trying to perform it live the first few times. Or like if I went to, I think as well, I was performing in Newcastle, which was where he's from, so it was very pertinent. But like, yeah, now when I play, I still think about when I play it, but I've sort of, you know, I can put the emotions aside and just play the song. But a lot of the time, the audience, again, it's one of those songs that it's not just about my granddad, it's about anyone that people have lost. So it's a lot of people, well, everyone can relate to that, whether that's a family member or a loved one or a friend. So you often get people in the audience like getting the Kleenex out or leaving the room, even, and it's like it's a not double-edged sword, but you know you want people to relate to it, but then you feel terrible because people are, it's like it's nice that people can relate to it and find comfort in that. I had a message the other week from a man who said he was listening to the record and it reminded him of his late wife, and he said like it meant a lot to him, and it's really nice that people can find solace in either the music or the words of the song, and yeah, that's what I hoped for with it.
Yeah, it's very powerful in that sense, and it's one of the things that I love most about this section of the podcast is, you know, like obviously losing people is such a difficult time, and it can be such an isolating time for people, and it's so like so there's so little conversation around it in general. So when the songs that can help people with that, I think it's just a great thing. And I think, you know, the more songs that, even though like in it, but I know exactly what you mean as well about sometimes having those songs that are emotionally weighty at a gig can feel a bit like, you know, you don't want to upset people, but then it is such a valuable space to create for people to express themselves through
Yeah,
other people's songs.
like you say, it's still a bit of a almost taboo topic to be spoken about because you don't make people upset. But why can't we be upset around strangers and feel those emotions? And like again, especially with like men, like who don't like to cry in front of people. And I mean, I'm a massive crier. I probably cry at least once a day. Like it's a form of therapy for me. Like it's cathartic. But like you say, you don't often hear bands talking about it openly on stage or artists, so it's nice to be able to do that. And yeah, I've got such a variety of songs, so I'll be doing Seesaw, which is about witchcraft and heresy, and then I have a song that I play live called the Cheese Song, which is kind of about food and cheese. And then I said, oh, this one's about my granddad dying. So you do have those like not peaks and troughs, but like the gig goes up and down in terms of emotions, and I quite like that. I don't want it to be all sad. I don't want it to be all happy either, because that's this life is. I'm gonna sound like an idiot. Life, sound like David Brent, but no, life is like it's good to have those different I don't know what I'm saying now.
Yeah, like covering the whole like spectrum of human experience, or something like that. yeah, no, definitely. It's a beautiful song. And yeah, that seems like a good place to kind of wrap things up. But thanks a lot for your time, Amelia. It's been really nice speaking to you.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, well done on the album. It's great. I'm looking forward to listening to it some more. And
now you know more about the little secrets behind it.
yeah. And you've got some tour dates coming up.
Yes, I'm going on tour with a band at the end of May. So we start on the 30th of May. I think in Glasgow or Birmingham. I can't remember now, but we're going to Glasgow, Birmingham, Totnes, Brighton, London, and Manchester, and a hometown show in Stockton, which is on the 8th of June to finish off the tour. But I'm also doing festivals and other gigs around then. So if you check out my website, ameliacoburn.co.uk, all the info about the tour dates and the album can be found there.
Brilliant. I'll put make sure the website's in the description and links to your social media and stuff as well. But yeah, thanks a lot, Amelia, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll be back on another episode soon.